Hey everyone, I've got 3 disturbing Reddit stories for you you won't forget. If you enjoy it, hit subscribe and leave a like. Here we go. I finally looked into what my aunt was doing in the basement when she babysat me, and I wish I hadn't. Some doors stay locked for a reason. I don't even know how to start this. I've been sitting with it for 3 days and it won't leave me alone, so I'm putting it here because I can't say it out loud yet. I'm 31, female, a hairstylist. I live alone in a basement studio apartment, which is its own kind of irony that I'll get to. Growing up, my mom Joanne worked double shifts every weekend, 12, 14 hours at a time. She couldn't afford real childcare, so her sister Denise took me and my younger cousin Milo every Saturday and Sunday. Denise's house was this old split level near the edge of town. I remember the carpet, the wood paneling, the way the kitchen always smelled like burnt coffee. And I remember the basement door. It was at the end of the hallway past the kitchen, and it was always locked. Always. If you even looked at it too long, Denise would appear out of nowhere and steer you back to the living room. She said it was storage. Old furniture, Christmas decorations, boxes from her ex-husband. I was a kid. I believed her. But there were things I remember now that I didn't have words for then. A chemical smell that seeped under that door. Sharp, like cleaning solution, but heavier, almost sweet underneath. Muffled sounds I couldn't identify. And people. Strangers who came and went through the side entrance of the house, the one that opened directly to the backyard. They never rang the doorbell. They never came through the front. I thought maybe they were Denise's friends. I thought maybe adults just did things differently than I understood. Then Milo called. 3 weeks ago, I was on the phone with Milo, just catching up, nothing heavy. He's 28 now. We don't talk often, but when we do, it's easy. Except this time, he got quiet in the middle of a sentence and then said, "Claire, do you remember the basement?" I said, "Yeah, the locked door, the storage excuse." And he said, "It wasn't storage. She used to take me down there." My whole body went cold. He told me there was a room set up down there, medical equipment, an exam table, instruments he didn't have names for as a child, a camera on a tripod, people who came through the side door, paid Denise cash, and did things to him that he's only now been able to talk about in therapy. He was 6 when it started. He said it went on for years. And then he told me something that cracked me open. He said, "You never saw any of it because she gave you that cough syrup every time. You'd be out cold by 7. I remember the cough syrup. Thick, purple, sickeningly sweet. I remember never questioning it because Denise said I was getting a cold. Every single weekend. I remember waking up Sunday mornings heavy, confused, my mouth tasting like metal. I was never sick. She was putting me under so I wouldn't hear what was happening 1 floor below me. The week after that phone call, Claire started to fall apart. I couldn't eat for 4 days. Not in a dramatic way. I just kept forgetting. And then when I remembered, the thought of food made my stomach flip. I work with my hands all day. I stand behind people in a chair, I touch their hair, I lean in close to check a line. It's intimate work when you think about it. I never used to think about it. Now I couldn't stop. I kept picturing that exam table Milo described. I kept thinking about the word close and what it meant in that basement versus what it means in my salon. On Wednesday, I was doing a blowout and my hands started shaking so badly I had to set the scissors down and tell my client I needed a minute. She asked if I was okay. I said low blood sugar. I went into the back room and sat on the floor with my knees pulled up and tried to breathe. I called Milo that night. I told him I needed to hear everything, and I needed him to know I believed every word. He was quiet for a long time, and then he started talking. Denise used to tell him the people coming through the side door were doctors. She called it his checkup. She would take him downstairs while I was already out cold upstairs from that syrup, and she would position him on the table, and the camera would already be set up. He said sometimes there were 2 or 3 strangers in the room. He said Denise kept a notebook. She wrote down dates, names, amounts. She kept receipts, cash amounts in neat columns. He said it was the organization that haunted him the most. The fact that none of it was chaotic or sloppy. She ran it like a business. He tried to tell someone. Once. I asked Milo why he never said anything. He went quiet again, and when he came back, his voice was different. Flat. He He said when he was around 9, he told his school counselor that something happens at Auntie Denise's house. He didn't give details. The counselor flagged it to his teacher, and somehow, Milo still doesn't know how, Denise found out within the week. After that, the visits got worse. He said she told him that if he ever spoke again, she'd make sure no one believed him, and then she'd make sure it hurt more. He stopped talking after that, for years. I sat in my studio apartment after we hung up and stared at the ceiling. I was right there, every single weekend, drugged unconscious on the couch 1 floor above him. I keep going back to those Sunday mornings, waking up heavy, my head stuffed with cotton, that metallic taste coating my tongue. And Denise standing over me with pancakes and orange juice, smiling, asking if I slept well. She was so sweet those mornings, impossibly sweet, because she was managing me. I wasn't her niece on those weekends. I was a variable she needed to keep controlled so the rest of her operation could run smoothly. I need to call my mother. I need to know if Joanne ever suspected anything, ever asked a question, ever noticed that her daughter was being sedated every weekend in her sister's house. I'm terrified of the answer. Claire called her mother. I picked up the phone on a Tuesday night. My hands were steady this time, which almost felt worse, like my body had already braced itself for something it knew was coming. I told Joanne everything. I told her what Milo said about the basement, about the exam table and the camera, about the strangers who came through the side door. I told her about the cough syrup. And the first thing out of her mouth was, "Claire, Denise did us a huge favor all those years. You need to be careful throwing around accusations like this." Not horror, not confusion, not even doubt, just defense. I pushed. I asked her if she ever went into the basement. She said Denise kept it locked because there were exposed nails and old paint down there. It wasn't safe for kids. I asked why Denise specifically wanted us every weekend and never during the week. That one made her go quiet. A long, airless kind of quiet. Then she said, "I can't do this right now, Claire. I need to lie down." And she hung up. I sat there holding my phone, and I understood something I didn't want to understand. That silence wasn't shock. Joanne has a way of going loud when something surprises her. She yells, she questions, she talks over you. Silence means she already knew the shape of what you were about to say. She just didn't want to hear it spoken out loud. Then Claire started searching. I couldn't sit with the phone call and do nothing, so I did what felt like the only thing within my reach. I looked Denise up. I searched her name, checked every social media platform I could think of, scrolled through public records. She's not hard to find. She doesn't hide. And that's when something went cold inside me. Denise moved 3 years ago. She lives less than 15 minutes from my apartment now. Same city, same side of town. I could walk to her street. I pulled up her profile and there she was. Recent photos, smiling at a neighborhood cookout, standing with families I didn't recognize. She looked exactly the same. Older, sure, but the same careful smile, the same way of standing just a little too close to whoever was next to her. I zoomed in on one photo, and there was a kid sitting on her lap. Someone else's kid. I closed my laptop and sat in my studio in the dark for a long time. She's not gone. She's not some distant figure from my childhood living in another state. She's right here, and from the looks of it, she's still positioning herself around children. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, but I know I can't just sit on it. Velvet shadow. The cough syrup detail makes me physically ill. She was sedating you so you wouldn't hear what was happening to Milo. That's premeditated on a level most people can't fathom. Burner Act. Help. I grew up with a family member who did something similar. The side entrance detail is chillingly specific. These people always have a separate way in for the visitors. Always. Quiet watcher. Your mom's silence is the part that's going to haunt me. That's not shock. That's recognition. I've been turning that moment over in my head constantly. When I told her, she didn't ask a single question. Not one. She just sat there and then said she needed to lie down. My whole life she told me Denise was the only person she trusted with us. I don't know what to do with that yet. After my last post, a lot of you told me to contact the family Denise is babysitting for. I did. I wish I could tell you it went the way it should have. I found the family through a neighborhood group online, a couple with 2 young kids, a boy and a girl, both under 7. Denise watches them 3 days a week while the parents work. I drove to their house on a Saturday morning. The mother answered the door and I introduced myself. I told her I was Denise's niece. I told her I had information she needed to hear. She looked at me and her face changed immediately, not into concern, but into something guarded and almost pitying. She said, "You're Claire, aren't you?" I hadn't given my name yet. She told me Denise had already spoken to her about me. Denise told this woman that I was mentally unstable, that I had a history of making false accusations against family members, that I was estranged from the family for good reason and might show up one day trying to spread lies. The mother said she felt sorry for me, but she trusted Denise completely and asked me to leave. I stood on that porch and felt something collapse inside my chest. Denise didn't just hurt Milo. She built a wall around herself years in advance, brick by brick, so that if anyone ever came forward, they'd hit a dead end. She knew someone might try. She made sure it wouldn't matter. A week later, Claire posted the update everyone had been waiting for. They found the records in Denise's house. I'm shaking while I type this. After the family turned me away, I called Milo and told him what happened. He was quiet and then he said, "We need to go to the police, together." So we did. Milo brought documentation from his therapist, clinical notes spanning 2 years that corroborated what he'd been disclosing in sessions. I brought my own account, the timeline I'd pieced together, screenshots of Denise's social media showing her continued access to children. The detective we spoke to took it seriously. She didn't rush us. She didn't minimize it. Within 10 days, they had a warrant. They searched Denise's current residence and found exactly what Milo had described all those years ago: archived equipment, a disassembled camera setup, and financial records. Notebooks with dates, initials, and dollar amounts going back over 15 years. 15 years of neat handwriting and columns, like she was running a small business out of her living room. Denise was arrested at her home on a Thursday afternoon. I found out because Milo called me, and for the first time in weeks, his voice didn't sound like it was coming from underwater. He just said, "They got her, Claire." I sat on the floor of my studio and cried until my ribs hurt. It's not over. The investigation is expanding, but she's not free anymore, and neither are we. Throwaway JT. Please tell me you've contacted the family she's babysitting for. This woman is still active, and that terrifies me. Not okay today. The fact that she went to the new family first to discredit you shows she's been planning for the possibility of exposure for years. That's not amateur behavior. Burner Act help. This is exactly right. Predators who operate this long build what's basically a counter-narrative infrastructure. They identify who might talk and neutralize them socially before any accusation lands. It's sickening, but it's textbook. The investigation is still ongoing. Detectives told us the financial records in Denise's house span over 15 years and contain initials they're now working to match to real people. There may be other children beyond Milo. I have to sit with that sentence every day. I called Joanne after the arrest. I didn't yell, I didn't accuse, I just told her the facts. That Denise had been arrested, that they found the notebooks, that the evidence was physical and documented and real. Joanne didn't cry. She didn't deny it. She didn't ask what they found or say it couldn't be true. She was just silent. A long, heavy silence. The kind that has weight to it. The kind that fills a room even through a phone line. Then she said she had to go and hung up. That silence told me more than any confession would have. I don't know if Joanne knew exactly what was happening in that basement. Maybe she didn't. But I think she sensed something was wrong and chose deliberately to never ask. Maybe the double shifts were real. Maybe they weren't. But the refusal to look, the decision to hand us over weekend after weekend and never once question the locked door or the side entrance or why her daughter was always groggy on Sunday mornings. That was its own kind of choice. I'm not ready to call it what it might be. Not yet. Claire had one more thing to say. Milo is in therapy. He's been going twice a week since before he told me any of this. He has bad days. Days where he can't leave his apartment. Days where he doesn't answer my calls. But he spoke. After almost 20 years of carrying it, he opened his mouth and said the words out loud, first to his therapist, and then to me, and then to the police. I don't have a word for what that kind of courage costs a person. I think about my own role in all of it. The kid asleep on the couch, knocked out on cough syrup, completely useless while the worst thing imaginable happened one floor below. I know I was a child. I know I didn't choose it. But the guilt doesn't care about logic. I live in a basement studio apartment now. I cut hair during the day. I come home and I sit in a room that's partly underground, and I think about another room that was partly underground, in another house, in another time. The irony isn't lost on me. I chose this username because I spent my whole childhood being quiet. Quiet because I was drugged, quiet because I didn't know, quiet because the people who should have protected us decided silence was easier than truth. I'm not quiet anymore. I don't know what comes next, but I know that much. Midwest mom. I used to babysit my nieces, and the idea that someone could use that access like this makes me want to scream. I'm so sorry, Claire. And I'm so sorry for Milo. On to the next one. Someone is leaving Instagram comments from my dead friend's deleted account, and they're describing the inside of my apartment, 24M. Posted 3 days ago by Throwaway Van Dev. I need to write this down somewhere because I am starting to feel like I am losing it, and if I tell one more person in my life, they are going to think I already have. I am a 24-year-old web developer. I live alone in a basement studio apartment, the kind where your only window is a narrow strip at ground level that lets in about 40% of the daylight a normal person gets. I have been here almost 2 years. It is cheap, it is quiet, and for someone who spends 12 hours a day staring at code, it works. My landlord Gerald owns the building and lives off-site. His adult son lives in the unit directly above me. I rarely see either of them. My older sister Jocelyn checks in on me every couple of weeks, mostly to make sure I am eating something that is not ramen. The person I need to tell you about is Marin. Marin was a close family friend. Not blood, but the kind of person who showed up at every holiday, every birthday, every hospital visit. She was like a second older sister to me. About 3 years ago, Marin deleted her Instagram account. She was pulling back from social media entirely. Then, roughly a year after that, she passed away. I am not going to get into the details of how. It still sits in a place I do not like to touch. The quiet did not last. I post on Instagram sometimes. Nothing personal, just my desk setup, keyboard builds, monitor arrangements, developer stuff. 4 days ago, I uploaded a photo of my new ultrawide and my freshly cable-managed workspace. Clean shot, tight framing, just the desk and the wall behind it. That night, a comment appeared from an account I did not recognize at first. Then I read the username, and my hands went still on the keyboard. It was Marin's exact old handle, the one she deleted 3 years ago. The comment said, "The blue light from your monitor fills that whole room after dark. You really should get a curtain for that little window." I sat there staring at my phone for I do not know how long. My basement studio has one narrow window at ground level. I have never photographed it. It has never appeared in any of my posts. I have never mentioned it online. I clicked the profile. No posts, no followers, no following, no profile picture. Just her username, sitting there like a door left open in a house that should be empty. Whoever wrote that comment knows what my apartment looks like after dark, and they chose to tell me using the name of someone I buried. He tried to rationalize it. That lasted about 3 days. I spent the rest of that night going through the account. No posts, no followers, not following anyone. The only activity on the entire profile was that single comment on my photo. I screenshotted it, then screenshotted the profile, then screenshotted the comment again with the timestamp visible. I told myself someone had re-registered the username after Instagram purged inactive accounts. That is a thing that happens. Usernames become available again. Someone grabbed it, found my page, left a weird comment. That is the rational version. But the rational version does not explain how they knew about the window. My desk photos are cropped tight. You see the monitor, the keyboard, the wall. You do not see the rest of the room. You definitely do not see the narrow strip of glass at ground level on the opposite wall, half hidden behind a boxwood bush on the sidewalk above. I went outside the next morning and stood on the sidewalk looking down. The window sits below grade. To see through it, you would have to kneel or lie flat on the ground behind that bush. Someone would have to want to look. Over the next several days, 2 more comments appeared. Not on the new post, on older ones. One said, "You moved the bookshelf to the left wall. It looked better by the door." I had moved the bookshelf about 2 weeks earlier. The other said, "You eat at your desk every night now. Maren would have hated that." They spoke about her like she was someone else entirely. That third-person reference is the thing that crawled under my skin and stayed. Not "I would have hated that." Maren would have hated that. As if the person behind the account was not even pretending to be her. They were just using her. I called Jocelyn that evening. I could hear my own voice shaking, and I hated it. She listened to everything, then said I needed to go to the police. I told her I had nothing. Screenshots of Instagram comments are not exactly a smoking gun. She said it did not matter, that I should file something anyway. I told her I would think about it. I did not think about it. I started sleeping with every light on in the apartment. The overhead, the desk lamp, the kitchen strip light. The building is old, and Gerald is the kind of landlord who fixes things when they break and otherwise pretends the property does not exist. His son lives right above me. I hear his footsteps at night sometimes, the creak of old joists. I taped a piece of cardboard over the narrow window before bed, cut it to size, pressed it flush, sealed the edges with packing tape. It was not elegant, but it meant no one could see in. I woke up the next morning, made coffee, opened Instagram out of habit. There was a new comment on my most recent post, from the same account. It said, "Cardboard isn't a curtain." He stopped asking who. He started asking how. After the cardboard comment, I switched modes. I'm a web developer. I solve problems by pulling them apart. So I pulled this apart. I tried reporting the account to Instagram directly and got an automated response saying they would review it. I submitted a request for account information and hit the wall I expected. They require a law enforcement subpoena for anything useful. Fine. I started building my own record. Every comment screenshotted with the timestamp visible. I made a spreadsheet logging what each comment referenced and when it was posted. Some described things that happened during the day, the bookshelf move, eating at my desk. Others referenced nighttime details, the blue light, the cardboard going up. I read the list over and over until a pattern surfaced. Every single comment described something visible from the main living area. Not once did any comment reference anything that happened in the bathroom. The bathroom is the only room in my studio with a solid door and no shared ventilation. Everything else, the kitchen nook, the sleeping area, the desk, is one open space connected to the building's ductwork through a large vent grate on the wall near the ceiling. That grate feeds into the shared laundry room on the other side. One screw was shinier than the rest. I dragged my desk chair over and stood on it to inspect the grate. 3 of the 4 screws had the same dull patina as every other fixture in the apartment. The 4th was bright, clean, clearly newer. I got a screwdriver and removed all 4. The grate came off easily. I leaned in with my phone flashlight and looked into the ductwork. About 8 inches back, angled toward my living space, there was a small black cylinder no bigger than a marker cap, a pinhole camera. I did not touch it. I photographed it from 3 angles. Then I went to the building's shared laundry room and traced the duct path to the utility closet next door. Gerald never locks it. The deadbolt has been broken since I moved in. Behind the water heater, zip-tied to a copper pipe, was a cheap laptop. The power light was on. It was connected to the building Wi-Fi. The screen was locked, but I could see notification banners sliding in at the top. They were Instagram notifications. I am not calling anyone yet. I know how this goes. The second someone finds out I know, that laptop disappears. I have a bootable drive at my desk. I am going to clone that hard drive tonight before I do anything else. I need to own the evidence before it gets erased. Sleepless, Margot. The fact that the account used a dead person's handle is genuinely one of the most disturbing things I have read on here. That is not just stalking, that is wearing someone's ghost as a disguise. Forklift certified Dan. I keep thinking about Maren's family finding out her name was used like this. Losing someone is awful enough without their identity being turned into a tool for something this sick. Pixel drift. Wait, so the landlord knew? Like he rented you that unit on purpose? I physically recoiled reading that part. Yeah, when I showed him the camera, he did not ask what it was or act confused. His first words were, "How did you get into the utility closet?" Not denial, not shock, just annoyance that I had found it. That sentence is what made me grab my laptop bag and leave that same hour. I did not even pack clothes. Jocelyn came and got the rest of my stuff the next day with 2 of her friends, and I never went back inside alone. A few days later, throwaway Van Dev came back with an update. They found cameras in his other buildings too. I cloned the hard drive that night, booted from a USB drive I keep in my desk drawer, mounted the laptop's disk read only, and copied every sector to an external. This is what I do for a living. Not forensics exactly, but close enough to know how to preserve a drive without altering it. On the cloned image, I found a browser with the Instagram account still logged in. The account was registered under Marin's exact old username. Instagram purges inactive accounts after a certain period, and the handle had become available again months after her original profile was removed. The registered email was a throwaway, but the local part of the address, the bit before the @ sign, contained a partial name. A first initial and surname fragment that matched Gerald's adult son. The same person living directly above my unit. I photographed everything. The camera in the duct, the grate with the mismatched screw, the laptop zip-tied to the pipe, the screen showing notification banners. I called Jocelyn and told her to come get me. She did not ask a single question. She just said she was on her way. While I waited, I packed a bag. 1 change of clothes, my laptop, the external drive with the clone. Before Jocelyn arrived, I did something I still cannot fully explain. I went upstairs and knocked on Gerald's door. He answered in a bathrobe. I told him I found a camera in the ventilation duct in my apartment. He looked at me for about 3 seconds. He did not ask what camera. He did not look confused. He said, "How did you find it?" Not, "What are you talking about?" Not, "That is impossible." How did you find it? I turned around and walked back downstairs without saying another word. Jocelyn pulled up 10 minutes later and we drove straight to the police station. Nocturnality Poe. I used to think basement apartments were cozy. I am never renting below ground level again after reading this. Cold Coffee Cass. Please tell me you have a lawyer. Gerald owning multiple buildings with the same setup means this is an operation, not a one-off. Sleepless Margot. Seconding this hard. If there are identical setups in other units, there are other victims who might not know yet. A lawyer can also make sure the digital evidence from the laptop clone is handled properly so nothing gets thrown out. We filed the report that night. I handed over the external drive with the cloned disk image, printed copies of every screenshot with timestamps, and a written summary of the comment history going back to the first one about the blue light. The detective I spoke with was calm, in a way that told me she had seen something like this before, which was both reassuring and deeply unsettling. Gerald's son was arrested within 48 hours. The email tied to the Instagram account, combined with the laptop's browser history and the building's Wi-Fi logs, gave them more than enough. Gerald was charged as an accessory shortly after. During the investigation, the police executed search warrants on 2 other basement-level rental units Gerald owns across the city. They found identical setups in both. Pinhole cameras recessed in ventilation ductwork, cheap laptops hidden in utility spaces, all connected to building Wi-Fi. The tenants in those units had no idea. One of them had been living there for over a year. I am staying with Jocelyn now. Her spare room has a window that faces a backyard, not a sidewalk. There is no vent grate. I checked the day I moved in. I checked again the next morning. I will probably keep checking. He is safe now. But safe feels different than it used to. I think about Marin a lot. Not the account, the real person. The one who used to show up at our house with grocery bags she pretended were leftovers so my mom would not feel like she was accepting charity. The one who taught me how to ride a bike in her driveway because my dad was working doubles that summer. Someone took her name and wore it like a mask. Not to honor her, not even to pretend to be her, just to make me feel watched and helpless in a way that also made my grief feel weaponized. Every time I saw that username, I felt her death all over again, and that was the point. The worst part is not the camera. It is not even the comments. The worst part is that Gerald held my keys. He could enter my apartment whenever he wanted. He knew what his son had built into the walls of that unit, and he rented it to me anyway. He watched me sign the lease. He shook my hand. I do not know if I will ever feel fully safe in a room by myself again. But Jocelyn leaves the hallway light on for me at night without being asked, and I am finding a new place next month, and I am trying. That is all I have right now. Quiet hallway kid. The detail about the blue light from the monitor is what got me. Whoever wrote that comment was looking at you in real time. They were not guessing. They were describing what they could see right then. All right, let us move on to the next one. My rideshare driver always takes the right route before I type in the address, and I finally figured out why. Posted 9 days ago on r/Let's Not Meet. So I'm Megan, 31, female, physical therapist. I live in a condo with my younger sister Jess, who's 26. We've always been close. She moved in with me about 2 years ago after a rough patch, and honestly, it's been great. We split rent, cook together when our schedules line up, and she's basically my favorite person on the planet. My daily routine is pretty predictable. I wake up, get ready, request a ride share to the clinic where I work, treat patients all day, sometimes grab lunch with my coworker and close friend Danica, then ride share home. I don't own a car. Parking downtown is a nightmare, and the math just never made sense for me, so ride share it is. About 3 months ago, I started noticing something I couldn't quite explain. I kept getting matched with the same driver. Same guy, same silver sedan, same profile photo. At first, I didn't think anything of it. It's a mid-sized city. Drivers work the same zones. It happens. But then I noticed something else. He'd start driving in the right direction before I even confirmed my destination. Like I'd get in, still be pulling up the address field, and he'd already be heading toward my clinic. Or toward the grocery store I always stop at on Thursdays. I told myself the app was probably caching my frequent routes or something. That seemed totally plausible. I almost forgot about it. She should not have forgotten about it. Then one evening, Jess texted me asking if I could pick her up from a friend's new apartment. A friend who had just moved. A place I had literally never been to, never searched, never even heard the street name before. I requested a ride, and of course, it was him. Same driver, same silver sedan. I got in and I hadn't even opened the destination field on my phone yet. I was still reading Jess's text to double-check the address. He pulled away from the curb and immediately turned east, the correct direction. My thumb was hovering over the keyboard. I hadn't typed a single letter. Then he glanced up at the rearview mirror, made eye contact with me, and said in the most casual voice I've ever heard, "Oak Ridge Court, right?" I have never in my life typed that address into anything. Not a text, not a search, not a map. My whole body went still. I just nodded. He smiled and looked back at the road like nothing happened. He already knew. And she still had to sit in that car. The rest of that ride was the longest 11 minutes of my life. I forced myself to say, "Yeah, that's right," in the most casual voice I could manage, but my hands were trembling against my phone screen. I tilted the phone toward my lap and texted Jess under my jacket. "Something is off with this driver. Be ready to leave when I get there." He was polite the whole time. Too polite. He asked me how my day was, if work had been busy, the kind of small talk that should feel normal but felt rehearsed. Like he already knew the answers and was just performing the questions. I kept watching his eyes in the rearview mirror. Every few seconds they'd flick up to me, then back to the road. His app profile said his name was Jason. Totally generic. Nothing that triggered any recognition. When we pulled up to Oak Ridge Court, I thanked him, gave him 5 stars because I was scared not to, and got out of that car as fast as I could without flat out running. I found Jess inside her friend's building and practically dragged her to the lobby. We ordered a ride home through a completely different app, and I didn't breathe normally until we were locked inside the condo. 14 rides. Same driver, same silver sedan. That night, I told Jess everything. She got quiet, chewed her lip the way she does when she's processing something that scares her, but then she offered an explanation. Maybe the driver had seen her friend's address pop up in a previous ride somehow, or maybe the app's algorithm was just weirdly aggressive about routing predictions. I wanted to believe her. I really did, but I couldn't shake it, so I opened my ride history and started scrolling. Same profile photo, same silver sedan, same license plate, every single time. I counted. He had been my driver at least 14 times over 3 months. I opened a spreadsheet and started logging every ride. The date, the time, the destination, whether I remembered anything unusual. The next morning at the clinic, I told my coworker Danica about it over lunch. She put her fork down and stared at me. She said, "Megan, that is not normal. You need to report this." And she was right. I knew she was right. But report what exactly? A driver who's good at guessing? A pattern that could technically be coincidence? I had nothing concrete, so I came up with a plan. I would request a ride to somewhere totally random, a place I had zero connection to, and see if he showed up predicting it. I ran my test. I picked a park on the far side of town, a place I've never been to, had no reason to go to, just pulled it off the map at random. Requested a ride. A totally different driver showed up. Normal ride, normal conversation, no weirdness at all. The next day, I did it again. Random coffee shop I'd never visited. Different driver, completely uneventful. I started feeling embarrassed, honestly. Maybe Jess was right. Maybe the algorithm was just doing its thing and I'd worked myself into a spiral over nothing. Then, 2 days later, Jess called me during my lunch break. She'd left her gym bag at the condo and had a class after work. She asked if I could grab it and drop it off at her gym. I said sure. I requested a ride. And there he was. Same profile photo, same silver sedan. I got in. I had Jess's gym bag on my lap and my phone in my hand, the destination field still blank. He pulled out, took a left, then a right, heading straight toward Jess's gym. I hadn't entered a single character. My stomach just dropped through the floor. I sat there staring at my spreadsheet on my phone and it hit me all at once. Every single time he'd predicted where I was going, the trip was connected to Jess. It was never about Megan. I went back through every entry, picking up Jess from Oak Ridge Court, dropping off Jess's gym bag, going to Jess's coworker's place for a birthday thing Jess had asked me to swing by. Every one of those rides, he knew the destination before I typed it. But my solo trips, the clinic, the grocery store, the pharmacy, he never predicted a single one. He wasn't tracking me, he was tracking Jess. I called Danica first because I needed someone who wouldn't try to rationalize it. She listened and then said very quietly that I needed to tell Jess tonight. So I did. I sat Jess down at the kitchen table and walked her through the spreadsheet. I showed her the pattern. She went pale. Not the kind of pale where someone's just surprised, the kind where something old and buried is clawing its way back up. I asked her if there was anything she hadn't told me. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said that in college she'd been with someone who was controlling and possessive, someone she'd moved 2 states away to get away from. She hadn't heard from him in over 2 years. She didn't want to believe it was connected, but the look on her face told me she already did. Nocturnal drift. The fact that he said the street name out loud is what gets me. He wanted you to notice eventually. That's not carelessness, that's a power move. Hollowfield XX. I need to know, in all those rides, did he ever try to make conversation about Jess specifically? Or did he keep it surface level so you wouldn't connect the dots? Lemon balm tea. I'm stuck on the GPS tracker inside the phone case. That means he had physical access to Jess's belongings before she even moved. How long has this actually been going on? That's exactly what made Jess break down. She bought that phone case at a campus bookstore during her last semester, which was almost 4 years ago. She remembers him borrowing her phone once to look something up the week before she left. We think he swapped the cable then. 4 years that thing has been sitting in her case, and she charged her phone with it almost every night. A few days later, Megan came back with an update. We found his apartment and it was 1 block from my sister's gym. After everything I posted, Jess and I spent that weekend tearing through every single thing she owned. Every bag, every pocket, every compartment. We almost gave up. Then, I pulled the charging cable out of her phone case. The same case she's had since college, brought it with her when she moved 2 states away. And there it was. A GPS tracker the size of my thumbnail, heat shrunk onto the cable near the connector end. You'd never notice it unless you were looking. Jess's hands were shaking so badly she dropped it twice trying to hold it up to the light. It was professionally attached, not some amateur job, not tape and wire. Whoever did this knew what they were doing and wanted it to last. That's when everything clicked. He wasn't hacking the rideshare app. He wasn't guessing routes. He had real-time location data on Jess every second of every day. Every time I requested a ride that was connected to her, picking her up, dropping off her gym bag, heading to her coworker's place, he already knew exactly where Jess was, so he knew exactly where I was going. That night, Jess pulled up her old college photos. She scrolled until she found one of her ex, a guy named Emmett. She held her phone next to the driver's profile picture on my app. Different hair, clean-shaven in the old photo versus bearded now. But the jawline, the eyes, the set of his mouth, it was the same person. Emmett had changed his legal name and moved to our city after Jess relocated to get away from him. He rebuilt his whole life around finding her again. Safe rides only. Please tell me you reported him through the app too, not just the police. These platforms have safety teams that can flag his device ID so he can't just make a new account. Yes, we did both. Danica actually helped us file something called a safety data request through the rideshare company's trust and safety team. The account name he registered under matched Emmett's new legal name. We handed the GPS tracker over to the police as physical evidence the same day. They have an open case now. Ren Morrow. Your sister moved 2 states away and he followed her. That's not a crush that lingered. That is someone who restructured his entire life around access to another person. Genuinely terrifying. Nocturnal drift. And changed his legal name to do it. Think about the level of planning. New name, new city, new job that literally puts him in a car with the sister of his target on a recurring basis. This man built an entire second identity like it was a project. The rideshare company deactivated Emmett's account within 48 hours of our report. Jess and I broke our condo lease that same week and moved. I'm not going to say where. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. During the police investigation, they pulled Emmett's rental history. He had an apartment on the same block as Jess's gym. Not the same neighborhood, the same block. And he'd been a member at that gym for 4 months under his new legal name. 4 months of Jess walking in, swiping her membership card, stretching on the mats, doing her classes, and he was right there, using the same equipment, breathing the same air. She never recognized him because he'd changed everything. The name, the beard, the hair, even put on about 30 pounds of muscle. He made himself into someone new so he could stand 3 feet from her and she'd never know. I keep going back over everything in my head. Every ride where he asked me how my day was. Every time he glanced at me in that rearview mirror. Every polite "have a good evening" when I got out of the car. None of it was about me. I was never the target. I was just the way in. Every conversation was reconnaissance. Every correct turn before I typed the address was him showing himself, maybe without even realizing it, that he had her. That he always knew where she was. She was the vehicle, literally. Jess and I are safe now. New place, new routines, restraining order filed. Jess got a new phone, new case, new number. Danica helped us find a lawyer who specializes in stalking cases, and we're pursuing charges beyond just the GPS tracker. I wrote all of this because I want people to understand something. I'm a physical therapist. I spend my days helping people trust their bodies again after injuries. I know what it feels like when something is off and you can't quite name it. That gut feeling I had in the back of that silver sedan was the same instinct I tell my patients to listen to. The signal that says, something here is wrong, even if you can't see it yet. Trust it, please. If a pattern feels too precise to be coincidence, it probably is. If someone knows things they shouldn't know, there's a reason, and the reason is never good. I still take ride shares every day, but I check the driver's face against the photo now. I check the license plate. And every single time, I watch the rearview mirror. Not to see the road behind me, to see who's watching. Recluse mode. This is why I never use the same rideshare app twice in a row. I rotate between 3 and I still check the driver's face against the photo every single time. Honestly, I used to think that was overkill. Now I do the exact same thing. I also screenshot the driver info and send it to Jess before I get in the car. Every time. It takes 10 seconds and it's worth it. Thanks for watching, and if these stories stuck with you, consider subscribing.